Today I'd like to do a quick review on the Chiappa Rhino 200DS chambered in 40 Smith & Wesson. So let's just double check, make sure the gun is empty. So first off, I just wanted to do this review because I had seen none for the Chiappa chambered in 40 Smith & Wesson. And yet I know that there are plenty out there. So first of all, let's talk about the accessories real quick. The 200DS, the snub nose, they all come with a nice leather holster. Very comfortable, very sturdy, really good quality. They also come with a moon clip demooner, which takes the rounds off of the moon clip, and it also comes with 3 moon clips for 40 Smith & Wesson. You do not need to fire the gun with the moon clips. You do not need to use them. When you chamber the rounds, you can easily pull them out with your finger. They don't really expand that much, so they work off of the case head, not a rim, and after you fire it, you can easily pull the bullet out, even after it's spent. I put about 100 rounds through it without the moon clips, and it worked perfectly fine. So now let's go over the design real quick. It has a very nice rubber grip. I would probably prefer a little bit less tacky rubber. It does catch on your clothing a lot, but it is very comfortable to shoot, very comfortable to grab. It has very nice sight, the fiber optic sight. Let's see if I can line that up. Yes, it sticks out very nicely in bright light, but as you know, in darkness the fiber optic doesn't really do anything. But in bright light it stands right out there. The only thing I noticed about it is that it is a little bit wobbly in there, just a little bit, but it hasn't really affected my accuracy at all. Also, as you know, this gun does have an internal hammer, and this is just a cocking lever. The cocking lever can be difficult to cock, but it's not impossible. It is a little bit hard, but I kind of see that as an advantage, because when a lot of people choose to get hammerless guns, because when it's in the holster, their argument is that when you pull it out, it can snag, get caught on stuff, and possibly inadvertently cock itself. However, this is a very smooth, rounded cocking lever. It doesn't really catch on anything. I have tried it many times drawing, reholstering, and it doesn't catch at all, and it also does not snag when it's wrapped around, because when you pull the trigger, it does not actuate this lever. So you can fire it from strange angles or from within pockets, within jacket pockets, without having any hang-ups on this. Another design that I really like is the cylinder release. Honestly, it's design-wise, it's the same as every other gun. It's not really that special, but specifically, you can release it with one hand. You do not need 2 hands to open the cylinder. I just don't want it to slam. But if you were in an emergency situation and you needed to reload this gun, you could easily do so with one hand, and that's something I greatly appreciate about this design. Another thing I'd like to talk about is the cylinder lockup. There's actually a set screw on this gun that corresponds to the cylinder lock directly underneath. And when the gun is cocked, that set screw backs against that cylinder lock. And this does two things. Number one, when you pull that trigger, it locks that cylinder tight. It's not going to move at all. It's locked up tight. And the second thing that it does is, after your revolver gets old, a lot of them get out of timing, and you can shoot. Oftentimes, you can accidentally fire the gun with an old revolver, and it's not lined up all the way. That will never happen with this gun, because the cylinder lock has to be in one of those notches. It can never fire without being locked up, and it will always be locked up tight. And that is a great advantage in my opinion. Now I want to talk about some of the reasons why I chose 40 Smith & Wesson over 357 and 38. And a couple reasons was the rounds are a lot shorter, and this is much easier to carry in a pocket. It's also much easier to load into the gun because you don't have 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches, or however they're long, 1 inch long bullets flopping around trying to get them to the cylinder. You have these much shorter bullets that are a lot easier to load in. Another reason is actually velocity and energy. I mean, everyone knows 357 Magnum is very powerful. However, all Magnum cartridges really need a long barrel in order to get that velocity up and in order to get all that energy. Those longer cartridges just have, they need more time to burn that powder. And in a 4-inch gun, in a 5-inch gun, 6-inch gun, 357 will always beat 40 Smith & Wesson. No doubt. 357 is just the more powerful round. But when you're talking about snub nose revolvers, that 40 Smith & Wesson bullet is taking up about just over half of that cylinder. So it has about 1/2 inch of travel in there, and then it has the other 2 inches in the barrel. And you're getting pretty decent velocities. I still haven't tested from this gun, but there is another YouTube person who has tested 45 ACP from the Smith & Wesson 625, and he found that the 625 4-inch was shooting higher velocities than a 5-inch 1911. And I think that has everything to do with these auto pistol calibers. They just burn their powder much faster, more evenly. And when they're coming down the barrel, they don't need that extra length. Of course, a 4-inch 625 has the extra length, but it's just not needed. And also, other guns are measuring it where the case seats, whereas revolvers measure it from where the barrel starts after the cylinder. So realistically, you are kind of getting this length right here for the barrel. You're getting slightly less velocity than a semi-auto possibly, but you're definitely getting more power than a 38 Special, and probably on par with a 357 from a snub nose. However, you are not getting the loud noise as a 357, and you are not getting all of that recoil that a 357 has. And I've put about maybe 300 rounds through this gun. The recoil's nice. It's a little snappy, like most 40s, but it is not bad at all. This is a very nice gun. No issues, no problems. The trigger's nice, in my opinion. It's much better than a J-frame, I think. The trigger, it kind of almost feels like it gets lighter as it goes on, and it breaks with no over travel. It's very smooth, comfortable trigger. I know Chiappa had problems with their early models with the trigger, but this is a very, very nice trigger. And I've had absolutely no issues with it. I wish I could give you some numbers for velocity for 40 Smith & Wesson, but I don't have a chronograph, so sorry. But otherwise, it's a very nice gun. I would highly recommend it. It conceals very easily. I can put it in this outside the waistband holster, and you can't see it under a t-shirt. So, and I'm carrying it about 3 o'clock position, and you just can't see it. It hides. That grip just comes off in a weird angle, and it just doesn't really look like a gun. And what you can see is very minimal. If anything, you could see the holster a little bit more right here than you can even see the grip of the gun. So, very nice gun, very nice accessories, and it shoots great.